dead. Media proudly presents...
Hey there, cinephiles, Dead Media here. Back with our fourth Christmas sequel nobody asked for. This time we're covering National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation 2, Cousin Eddie's Island Adventure. Why did I choose movies with such long titles? Holy hell. Before we get started here, let's talk about National Lampoon. National Lampoon was an American humor magazine that spun out of the Harvard Lampoon and ran for 28 years, starting in 1970. It was an extremely successful parody magazine during the 70s. Something like Mad or Cracked. It was successful enough that they began releasing movies with the National Lampoon endorsement. These films included 4 of the 5 Vacation movies plus one spin-off, all 3 Van Wilder movies, Animal House, Loaded Weapon 1, and Senior Trip, as well as several others of varying quality. The name has worked well enough in film that it has continued past the extinction of the magazine, with some properties still being made today. Many people probably remember a few of the movies I mentioned fondly, maybe as one of the first raunchy comedies they saw. Just as an example, I may be a film buff, but I remember hearing about how great Animal House was, or Christmas Vacation, or Van Wilder, all of which are extremely enjoyable. Van Wilder spawned a sequel and a prequel. Animal House didn't continue, but that may have to do with the untimely death of John Belushi. I don't know. Christmas Vacation, though, spawned a spin-off, a TV movie, released 14 years after the original and featuring almost none of the original characters, but I guess that's why it's a spin-off. Anyway, today's criteria are plot and writing, acting, dialogue, visuals, and soundtrack. So the story goes that Catherine and Eddie are watching Audrey's house. During this time, Eddie loses his job in nuclear research, wherein they put nuclear waste into his body to see what effect it has on him. However, after a plumbing mishap one night, Eddie goes to the facility to ask for his job back. While in the office of the head honcho, a series of events leads to Eddie being bitten on the ass by a chimpanzee, the wound from which never shows up because the nuclear waste they pumped him with healed him almost instantly. Now, the facility realizes that even though there is no wound to show for it, Eddie could theoretically sue them for his being bitten. They decide, however, to bank on his incredible stupidity and send him and his entire family on an all-expenses-paid vacation in the South Pacific. Okay, sure. Anyway, while they are on their vacation, they take a boat out at one point which conveniently only has main cast members on board at the time. Eddie decides to take in a little bit of fishing while they're out on the water, and he catches something. Something huge. Big enough, actually, that it drags them quite a bit off course, and since the boat doesn't have a compass, they get lost and crash land on an island. As soon as they make their way ashore, their boat floats away, stranding them completely and leaving them to figure out how to survive. Now, this plot is obviously doing a few things just because, like they wrote the idea, then had to backtrack and figure out how they get everyone there. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if this whole story was built around only a handful of gags. So while the story may be somewhat interesting, the writing here is pretty rough and actually costs them a kernel. In this movie's favor, there are actually 3 actors returning from the main franchise. Eddie is being played once again by Randy Quaid.
Hello, boys! I'm back!
Catherine is being played by Miriam Flynn. And Dana Barron is back as Audrey, though I think that one is a bit wrong. See, Dana Barron played Audrey in the original Vacation, not Christmas Vacation, where she was played by Juliette Lewis. Nothing against Dana Barron, but since this is supposed to be a sequel to Christmas Vacation, shouldn't it be the same Audrey as in Christmas Vacation?
Pepe Sylvia, look in the mail. Well, this whole box is Pepe Sylvia!
I don't know. Maybe I'm just being picky. Now, as for the performances, Randy Quaid and Miriam Flynn are enjoyable as always in their roles, slipping effortlessly back in. Dana Barron is sort of irritating, but works well in returning as Audrey. If I'm honest, I don't remember her version of the character, so I don't know if she plays a believable evolution of the character. We also have 3 other main characters here, with Jake Thomas playing the largely forgettable and unfortunately nicknamed Third Johnson.
Well, it looks like a giant Johnson,
aka Clark Griswold III Johnson. Ed Asner playing Eddie's Uncle Nick, an entertaining old man who is just looking for a little booze and some action. And South Korean Playboy model Lee Sung-hee, for some reason, who plays their guide Mukalaka Miki. Trying hard to put forth the best customer service face while also attempting to avoid the advances of both Uncle Nick and Third. Everybody somewhat surprisingly actually puts in decent performances here. It's just a shame that the writing sucks. We can give him a Colonel for acting. The dialogue here actually seems to understand the characters they're putting forward and gives us a few quotable lines. For example, after he was fired, one night Eddie and Catherine are sitting awake. Suddenly Eddie looks like he's had an epiphany, before exclaiming, "That's it! Gall darn it, I'm gonna do it!" To which Catherine asks what, and Eddie replies, "I'm gonna have a hot bath, I can't sleep." Fair. After the plumbing goes haywire, while Eddie's on the phone talking to a recorded message, Catherine is trying to fight back the water and says, "I never did trust indoor plumbing." Eventually, Audrey returns home, having broken up with her boyfriend when she finds out that he's married, and states, "I'm thinking about killing myself or eating large amounts of ice cream." And Eddie answers, "I'd go for the ice cream." Sensible, Eddie. Quite a bit later, when they're on the island, Uncle Nick walks out of the jungle at one point and says, "When you get to my age, a good dump is one of the great pleasures in life." A sentiment which seems to be echoed through various media, so it may be true.
3 things to remember when you get older. Never pass up a bathroom. Never waste a hard-on. And never trust a fart.
This gives us 4 quotable lines for this one, and by our standard, earns the movie a Colonel. Now, one of the first things you might notice watching this one is that it looks like a TV movie. That's because it is one. And I don't know what it is about TV movies that makes them look so distinctly different, but they do. Have you noticed, or is it just me? One scene that I can think of is the fishing one. It looks terrible. They show the boat being dragged at high speeds back and forth across the screen like a gag out of a cartoon, but the job done here of superimposing the animated image was subpar at best. It looks lousy. There's also a few times in the movie where the plate in Eddie's head acts as a bug zapper due to the nuclear waste, but the bugs are a slipshod particle effect, and the movie conveniently forgets that the plate in Eddie's head is canonically no longer metal, having been replaced with plastic sometime before the sled scene in the first Christmas Vacation.
I don't know if I ought to go sailing down no hill with nothing between the ground and my brain but a piece of government plastic.
Late in the movie, there's a shot of a small plane flying upside down, and we see into the cockpit and see the pilots upside down and having a conversation, but somebody missed an important detail in this edit. The headphones for the pilot are hanging up into the cockpit. Up. Against gravity.
I can fly, and I can defy gravity.
Isn't that redundant?
The visuals do not get a Colonel this time. The soundtrack actually works well here. Most of it is pretty stock, but there are a few standout moments. For example, there's a point where Eddie has a dream in the vein of a silent movie, and the music is the ragtime style you would expect from that kind of film, which I think was an appreciable detail they could have easily overlooked. Like the headphones. And there's another point where Eddie is doing a revival church-style bit, thanking God and asking him to protect the shelter they've made. And the music that comes over it is revival-style music, lending some actual humor through the appropriate comedic timing of the audio. I think we can actually give them a Colonel for the soundtrack. Now, let's tip out our bucket and see what we have. We have 3 Colonels. I actually really don't like this one. As I said with A Christmas Story 2, maybe that comes down to me having a long-standing love of the original, but this one feels inferior in every way to me, and as much as I like Eddie as a character, he should never have gotten his own movie. It gets tired quick. I was actually sort of confused because my notes actually originally ordered the movie 4 Colonels because the storyline was interesting enough, but during scripting I realized I could easily take one away for the writing. It wasn't really enough because this looks like I saw it as middling, but really, the kernels it got, it deserved as much as I don't like the movie. But let's move on to Name That Frame. This is a continuation of the round started in my Jingle All the Way 2 video. So if you'd like another hint, look there. If you look at my screen, we have another still. As stated last time, this is a Christmas movie, but for your hint, we'll say that it is a comedy TV movie from the 70s. Know what it is? Comment below. And as always, if you have any comments, questions, or ideas, leave them down there too. I try to answer everything. That's all I got for this one, folks, but I've got one more video in the tank.
This year, Santa's not going out in a sleigh. This time, he's going total tank
For this theme. So I'll see you next time. Bye!